today's webinar.
Starting the recording.
Thank you. Thank you for joining today's webinar. This webinar is hosted by the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network. My name is Talia Bear. I'm a citizen of the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation and Navajo, originally from Arizona. And currently, I am the program coordinator for the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network. I also serve as the Indigenous Peoples Engagement Manager with Western Resource Advocates. And I'm dialing in from Boulder, Colorado. I'd also like to introduce my colleague here, who also is my counterpart at IWLN. Would you like to introduce yourself, Mira?
Absolutely, thanks, Talia. My name is Mira Barney. I'm an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation. I'm program assistant for the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network and an executive assistant at Western Resource Advocates. Thrilled to be here today and start this webinar.
Thanks, Mira. Mira is everything IWLN, so you probably see lots of emails from her and newsletters in your inbox. For those who are not familiar with IWLN, I want to tell you a little bit about the initiative. We were established in 2022 under the Water and Tribes Initiative, and IWLN supports a group of multi-generational Indigenous women in the areas of water, natural resources, and the broader environment who work on issues in the Colorado River Basin. We seek to connect past, present, and emerging women leaders to learn from each other, mentor one another, and support one another. And so typically we offer at least 4 webinars per year that are focused typically on professional development, like this one today. And we also send out a quarterly newsletter as well as having events at gatherings around the Colorado River Basin. So I apologize, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little scratchy here. So today's webinar, we are going to learn from current and past leaders who have served their communities on tribal council. We'll hear reflections and advice on how to run for tribal council in your communities. This webinar, we anticipate to be about an hour in length at most. And we really envision this to be a conversation with you and encourage your active participation in the event. This is a meeting style, so everyone has the ability to mute and unmute yourself and raise your hand and use the chat function. We have purposefully not used the webinar Zoom for this occasion, just so that we can see each other, get to know one another, and just have an informal conversation together. We did solicit questions before, during registration, and I have a list of those questions which we can go through, but please feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar. And you can do that either by using the chat function or by raising your hand and I can call on you. As we do go through, please be aware of muting yourself and unmuting yourself, just because this is a meeting format. And as you heard earlier, we will be recording the webinar and it will be posted onto our website. So with that, I would like to start with some introductions of our panelists today. And so I will start with Vice Chairman Lorelei Cloud of the Southern Ute Tribe. Lorelei Cloud is a member of the Southern Ute Tribe, which is located near Ignacio, Colorado. She is currently serving as the Vice Chairman of the Southern Ute Tribal Council and is in her 3rd term or 8th year on council. During that time, she served as Vice Chairman and Treasurer. She has also served a 2-year term as Chairman of the 10 Tribes Partnership, and she is currently a member of the Water and Tribes Initiative, co-chair of the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network, and board trustee for the Nature Conservancy for Colorado. I would also like to introduce Gwendina Lee Gatewood from the White Mountain Apache Tribe, who is also co-chair of IWLN. Gwendina is community president for McNary Honda Community Board, a volunteer position working with numerous volunteers and actively working to help the community in various ways. She also serves as a board member for a neighboring town on the Chamber of Commerce. Wendina is the first female ever elected to the highest office for her tribe, serving as tribal chairwoman from 2018 to 2022. As chairwoman, she was active on many platforms to improve the way of life for her people, especially doing so during the challenging period of the COVID-19 pandemic. Wendina has been invited to speak at various events that focus on Indigenous women, and what she encourages most for young women is to know their self-worth and make an impact on their homelands and beyond. Our third panelist today is Darnella Melanson. Darnella is an enrolled member of the Quetzon Indian tribe located partially in California and Arizona, bordering the Colorado River and Baja California, Mexico. She has served 2 terms as a council member for the tribe and is currently nearing 21 years in state law enforcement service, with specialized experience in organizational development, public trust, and equal employment opportunities. Darnella is a veteran of the U.S. Army after serving as combat medic. She previously coordinated the Victim Services Program, where she managed Stop Violence Against Indian Women grant. Darnella is a longtime peer support member with training and certification in stress management and crisis intervention. She is a member of the National Center for Crisis Management and the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress. She continues to serve as a community advocate for individual wellness, as well as environmental wellness, and is also a co-chair of IWLN. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to run through some questions, and the questions that were submitted, I sort of I organize them in ways of preparation and building support for a run on council, questions related to being in office, supporting leaders in office, and then just some reflections. So we'll kind of go through those 4 different areas. But again, I'd like to encourage audience participation. If you do have a question, please feel free to ask it, raise your hand, or put it into the chat. So I guess I would like to ask of the 3 panelists here. The first off is, what steps would you recommend taking to get to the point of running for tribal council? So I guess what what concrete steps did you take, but also what motivated you to run for tribal council? And I'll go ahead and direct the first question to Vice Chairwoman Lorelei Cloud.
Well, first I want to make a shout out to Crystal Tully Cordova, because she is another co-founder and former co-chair of the Indigenous Women's Leadership Network. So I'm happy that she's here and helping to continue to support us. So I really like this question because it's the foundation of why you want to run for any type of leadership is knowing what you're why you're doing it. And for me, I was having issues when, well, not just me, but my other co-workers were having issues with one of our organizations that we were working in. And I decided at that one point that I wanted to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And so making that statement, I really made it, I had to make sure that I stood in my word and in my integrity, and actually run for an office if I'm going to be in any type of position to be able to help other people. And so I actually kind of almost tried to talk myself out of it, but just because I thought, I can't do this, there's no way I can get into leadership. Who's gonna want to elect me, So I had all these negative thoughts, but once you get past that and actually get into it, it still is the reason why I'm here running for council and being part of the leadership, is because I want to be the solution in helping people solve problems that they come across. And I've seen just about everything under the sun come under, to the leadership saying, we need this help. And sometimes it's a slow process, and that's something that you have to also be aware of even when you're thinking about running, is knowing you may not solve everything and you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. But if you can make the majority of the people happy or help them in a certain way, then that's what you need to really concentrate on, especially if you're running for office and saying, and having that thought, you're not going to make everyone happy. But if you can do it for the large majority of people, then stay steady on that path and just keep moving forward.
Thank you, Lorelai. And Gwendina, I'll direct the question to you as well. What motivated you to run, and what steps would you take before running?
Well, when I was executive assistant to tribal chairman, the late tribal chairman, Ronnie Lupi, he was in leadership for over 50 years. And it was time for him to retire. And he called me in one day and wanted to talk to me about the next 4 years. And I honestly thought he was going to tell me to, I want you to support so-and-so, that kind of a talk. But it was a talk about leadership, a talk about humility, a talk about a vision for our people and what my thoughts were on it. And the more we got to talking about it, he was like, I want to hand the keys off to someone that I know that I can trust to help the people, and you have a good heart, and I want you to run for office. And I was I was like what Lorelai was thinking, like, geez, me, no one's gonna want to vote for me. And in my mind, I thought that. I didn't dare say that to him because I was just listening to him. But the more I thought about it, the more I was telling myself, no one is going to vote for a woman, especially us, because there's never been a woman leader. 2 women have previously tried to run for the top seat and didn't get elected. And he told me, he reassured me. He said, I know it's a big thing to undertake, but I know you can do it. You've been my executive assistant. There were reasons why I sent you to meetings by yourself. There were reasons why I had you write these things. There were reasons why I had you go on the radio. In a way, he was preparing me, and I didn't even know. But I'll never forget what he told me. He said, you will never please everyone, but it will take only a little bit to make everyone mad at you. But that's just the way that it is. And you have to keep plugging along. And he told me, I can't support you right off the bat. I can't just start endorsing you. You have to work hard for this position. You have to earn the trust of the people. So you have to establish the trust, start visiting people, letting them know that you're going to run for office. Get to know people, start attending events and just hearing people out. And you'll have to have patience and the ability to listen. But always remember to always tell the people everything that you possibly can. Don't hold anything back if, within reason. There's some things that are confidential in nature, but even if you have to deliver bad news, give it to them, and they'll remember that, and they'll be like, hey, that's someone we can trust. But I would have never have thought that I would lead during a pandemic. My leadership just went directly into, my plans, what I had. I got to put them on a shelf, and I got to start just responding to this pandemic. So, what did I build up to start to run for a seat? Just getting to know the community even more. Yes, I was an executive assistant, but you have to go a little notch further than just being the executive assistant. It's being actually out there with the community at a more deeper level. And that's how I started out laying the groundwork.
Thank you. That's great that you had a mentor, and what an incredible run. 50 years. I've
Yes.
never heard, that's a long time.
Yeah, and when he wasn't chairman, when he was not chairman, he was tribal council. I'm just
Wow.
like, wow.
That's a lot of service.
Yeah.
Darnella, what about you? What motivated you to run? How would you prepare?
I just wanted to say really quick, I'm so thankful to all of you here. I want to thank Talia and Mira for setting things up and doing all the things behind the scenes, and to the other co-chairs, Lorelai and Gwendina, just being around women who get it, and are working hard to build community. So I just want to thank you all and all of those that are tuned in. For me, I would say as a child, I was always a dreamer. I was raised on the reservation. My parents divorced when I was about 5 or 6. My mom moved us back to the reservation, and to me, that was the great shift in my life. And I remember, back then there weren't all the homes, and we didn't have the casinos back then. And I wanted to know what my purpose was, and so I remember sitting outside as a child and just speaking to the creator, or him speaking to me, having that moment where I wanted to know why I'm here and what's the purpose of me leaving San Diego, and coming back to the reservation where my mom said, these are your people, this is where we are now, and just feeling fear as a child. So it started back then. And so for me, I would say I always wanted to help. I always had a heart to help and wanted to see things better, to be improved. Lots of struggles as a child. We grew up poor, eating commodity foods and things that it just became normal, and wanting better. So as I grew older, I stayed in that realm of service, serving the community, but I didn't know where my path was going to lead to. So I think if I look at my steps, they started early on. And my late mother, she saw the leadership in me, and when you think about matriarchal leadership, I think in the home, even if you come from a home with struggles and adversity, those around you, they see things you may not see. And so just allowing people to speak to you, it starts there. You're a leader. You're a leader. No, I'm not. I want to go run around outside. I don't want to be. But I thought back to those things. And when I came to the time, I had served the tribe. I worked with CHR and some other roles. And, after leaving the military and coming back home, our tribe, we have a word called Kwaname, and it means warrior. And, people start telling me, you're a Kwaname. And I was like, what? And they were saying, you go out and you get these skills in the outside world and you bring it back to your community. So for me, I knew it was coming to me. And so when it came to running for council, the first time, that was back in 2011. And I think before then I considered it, but it wasn't timing, and I wasn't able to run or get my name on. So when I did get elected, I think the people that I thought would vote for me, and the people I didn't know I had as much support as I did. So those were the two things. It was a heart issue and wanting to help, wanting to serve, wanting to see an improvement in the tribe, and learning what my tribe stood for. I had to learn the Constitution. I had to learn what other laws affect us. And I always remember Public Law 280 because we're partially in California and Arizona. And those things always caused us to get less. The police treated us different ways, different things that we went through that everyone else wasn't going through. So that's where it started for me. And obviously I could share other things, but I think knowing your heart, counting the cost, because it is a cost, and knowing that, if it's truly your purpose, if that's what it is, talk to people, talk to the elders. And, I remember like my mom saying, you're going to lead. And I think everything else is just taking the initiative to learn what is needed and what your role is. And to be a good partner with your tribe and its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Darnella. So we kind of touched on this a little bit, but and you mentioned community support and being out into the community was a way to prepare you and to listen and learn to what the community is saying. But I'm curious, like what resources are needed to run? Maybe Glendina, you can answer that.
Okay, in terms of resources, when you first start to get your, first of all, you're going to have to hold a meeting with your family, let them know your intentions. Then from there, it extends to your relatives and your friends. You're running for office. And if it's for tribal leadership or a municipality, those two are two different things, what I've seen. And in terms of resources, you got to think of how much is it going to cost me to run for office, and it does involve money. So you've got to pay for your advertisements, your radio, your mailers, your trips, and your helpers that are going to go. If you have a petition drive for my tribe, you have to get petitions signed by a certain percentage of the voting population, and they can't be double signers. So if people double sign, those names get taken off, and that might cause you not to make the ballot. So in terms of resources, you're going to need volunteer help. And sometimes it's hard for people to volunteer. That's something that you don't hear as much anymore because everything costs a lot more. So for someone to help you go door to door, go get signatures, here's $30 to help you with gas. And for my tribe, when you host events, it's a part of your goodwill to the people to feed them. So you feed them at these events, and you have to prepare for hundreds of people that are going to show up and listen to what you have to say. So you really have to get your resources in order. So whatever community you come from, whatever population base that you're dealing with, start getting your budget in order. It's going to cost this much for radio ads, this much for advertisements in the newspaper, for flyers. If you're going to host a meet and greet where it includes food, or refreshments, what is that going to take? And how long is your campaign going to be? If it's a primary and a general, or just a general, and you take into account of those events, how many events you're going to host. And sometimes, families are willing to sponsor an event for you. Let us sponsor for you, and we'll take care of the feeding, and we'll, that takes a load off. So if you can start getting those in order now for the future, you won't have to be overwhelmed. So always be prepared. And in terms of the resources, if people can donate to your campaign, that's even better. And that will help cut down your costs. But for me, I basically told myself it's going to have to be my family, mainly as the core foundation that's going to help promote the campaign. But luckily, there are generous people out there who have kind hearts that want to help, and they'll say, here's $10, here's $5. Those add up over time, and that can help you. So I would suggest getting your budget down and seeing what you need and how you can start funneling your fundraising efforts to run for office.
Thank you for that. A lot of tortilla making sounds at times.
Yes, hundreds of tortillas at every rally and fried bread. So
Vice Chairman Cloud, is it correct that you're going to be running for re-election this fall? And if so, what preparations are you making now?
I am. So my term is up. My third term is up this year. So preparing now is just making sure that I'm talking to all the people that I know are my support out there, and then talking to those that aren't my support system, because I still, regardless if they vote for me or not, I'm still their leader, and they're still my constituent. And so making sure that they know that and that I'm still reaching out to them regardless of how they feel about me has been one of my priorities. I won't be able to throw my name into the hat not until August, because that's kind of when they start the process. And so so I have time to build that up, but it's constant, you know, always talking to people, always acknowledge, even if you don't talk to them, at least acknowledge them in a store, wherever, just so that they know that you know that they're there. Just that simple moment really can help you, because if another candidate doesn't do that, they'll always remember that you were there, that you did pay attention to them. Also, getting out my older signs back out and making sure that they're all cleaned up, and reordering some of those, just because. So when I ran for chairman, a lot of my signs got stolen. So I had to go back and replace some of those. And so just making sure that I have everything kind of in order. So once I get my okay to go ahead and start campaigning, because they'll run a background check on me. And then once I get my letter saying everything was clear, then I can start putting my signs out and then start just talking to people. But I already have a little fund set aside so that I can start buying my little, you know, t-shirts and pins and, you know, all the different things that I'm going to be giving away when I talk to people. And also getting so I don't like Facebook. I love social media, but not Facebook. And so I have to reacquaint myself with Facebook. So Facebook is just not, not my thing. So just kind of getting back into that spin of making sure that I'm visible everywhere and being open. I do let people know if they want to know anything, just ask me. I'm an open book. As long as it's not confidential information, I'll tell them everything, you know, that's going on. And that's something I've always done. So I think I have a good rapport with a lot of people. And so that's kind of my base. And then the election day is the first Friday in November. That's always kind of a scary moment. I think your stomach always drops when the count starts. So like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? But but I think I should be pretty well set, I guess.
You've done this before, so.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm set, but I'm pretty sure I'll find something I didn't think of and kind of scramble at the last minute.
Darnella, would you like to add anything?
I'll keep it brief. Have some support of people who are runners, you know, people that are on social media, because you do need to know what the voice of the community is. And I think that's a resource, knowing what the word is on the street. We call it the dusty road. But, you know, I have young people or, you know, people in my family, you know, like, hey, go on social media, monitor what's going on, and keep that support. So I think a resource is support, having a few folks who can do different things. You know, maybe you don't have a campaign team, but just having those funds to make professional signs and not be willing to not care that, you know, you might get talked about like, oh, you're trying to be too much with those big signs, because, you know, that's how our communities are at times. But showing them a better way, like you can do these things professional, and it doesn't mean I'm being better. It means I take this seriously and I put my own funds into this. And then knowing the rules of your tribe is important, you know, because if you work for the tribe, some tribes, I mean, like our tribe, you cannot double dip. So you can't hold your role and run for and be on council at the same time. So knowing if it's going to affect your income, you know, some tribes give different stipends and salaries. So you just need to know those things, how it's going to affect your household, and your resources, and just having those plans set aside and not waiting to the last minute. So that's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you for that. All right, those are the warm-up questions. We're gonna get to the tough ones here about being in office. So we did have several questions around sort of the dynamics of working within the tribal council atmosphere. So things like working with leaders who don't want to change, navigating a male-dominant field, experiencing lateral violence. I'm curious, in your reflections and your experience, were these any experiences that you had related to this? And I'll kind of open it up if anyone has something they want to the full panel, if anyone has a response.
What was the first couple of questions?
So I guess, like, what were some of the challenges that you encountered? We'll say things around any lateral violence or working with other leaders who don't want to change.
Okay, that was the question. I think navigating personalities is probably the toughest thing you have to do because like our council will change at least once a year because our terms are staggered. And so you always have new people coming on and getting to know an individual on a personal basis is really good because it also shows what their leadership style is and how they want to be talked to and how they're receptive to information. So I have a seven-member council right now, and each one of us are completely different. But right now we have a really good council because we all complement each other. Each one of us has a different niche in the organization. And so there is some overlap and we really help each other to excel. And I think that part has been really good. So we're able to, if someone's not being receptive to some information, we're able to kind of go back and reiterate it a different way to help them. As far as being like a woman in a male dominant sector, that has been a little bit different for me, like on the Colorado Water Conservation Board. I think for a while it was always the same people and the same faces. And then once I came on board, it was very, it was a little bit different for me to get used to because the system is different than tribal politics and the way tribes run. And so that understanding how they operate was a good learning curve for me. And now that they all know me and how I operate and I understand each one of them and their different areas, it's helped us to gain a little bit better trust with each other. And so the trust factor is really important in how you're going to, a group is going to come together and as a collective and make decisions. And that's pretty, on tribal council, that's what you're doing. You're a collective making decisions, but it is basically navigating those different personalities.
I do want to ask Darnella and Gwendina this question too, but Lorelai, I wanted to follow up with you. You had mentioned the difference between being on the Colorado Water Conservation Board versus the Tribal Council and how they operate. Could you talk a little bit more about the differences between the two and how you adapted to that?
Sure. So like tribal council, like all of our meetings are closed to the public, not closed to tribal membership, but closed to the public. Where their meetings, they have the sunshine law. So as soon as, any email or conversations that the majority of us are in is subject to the public for them to view. And so making sure that you're not overstepping that bounds, particularly if you're talking about confidential information, you can't do that. There's very, very strict guidelines on how you communicate with the rest of your group. And everything, all of our meetings are recorded and are on YouTube. And anybody can join those meetings and ask you questions. So it's very, very open, very transparent, where I think tribal government, we're transparent to our own membership because we're a sovereign nation. We're just not transparent to the rest of the world.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that clarification. Darnella, I'm going to go to you and ask the same question about your experiences, navigating various personalities and maybe personalities within tribal councils in a male-dominated field. Do you have any comments on that?
I'm going to smile hard for this one. No, no, on a serious note, you have to be flexible. My lifestyle is leadership in any realm. Sometimes I go there and it's just like, part of my personality I'm seeking a solution. I'm already looking around, finding things that are out of place, and it's moving in me. Um, being in the military and in law enforcement, I had that experience of working in male dominated roles and sometimes, unfortunately, having to learn the hard way to be able to evolve into your role, not to be fake or afraid, but to be selective in how you distribute your power because you know it's a lot of authority and a lot of times I think those are the issues, how we speak to people, being forgiving, saying you're sorry, even if you're not ready to say you're sorry because maybe you were not wrong, but inside your heart, making a path for those relationships to be strengthened. Because when you're a leader for your tribe, you're the front line for everything. And there were risks out there, there are threats to our tribe. There's threats to our future, just as Indigenous people in leadership. And you have to be tough, but you don't want to be mean. And so for me, you first of all, in these roles, everyone's not going to agree with you. Everyone's not going to do things the way you want them done. And I think for me, being a leader in different capacities, especially in law enforcement, that's what I've known, stepping into the scene, taking control. Well, everybody doesn't like that, and yes, our male counterparts sometimes, it's respecting our brothers, and that's how I see it, and at home, I might have, you know, I have a brother, my late brother, we used to wrestle growing up and I was strong because I was a big girl. I was tall. So, the boys would look at me like, gosh, she's rough. I'm always out there like a tomboy. But when when I would wrestle with my brother, he would get angry. And, I had to learn, is it important to win? Not to be fake, but to support my brother and say, hey, you got me. But sometimes I would let them know like, hey, if you're going to go at me, let's go. But just to sum that up, just to be respectful, and it is an evolving role because um again, I have to know myself and I have to know what I'm letting off, and every approach I have does not work for every situation. So sometimes I have to learn to be quiet and listen and learn that if I'm not effective because I have to say the last word, then we're losing as a tribe. So those are just some little nuggets that I could share just from experiences I had, good and bad, and then growing together. And if you see something that's off with other people on the council or men because of, maybe everyone's coming to you because they see these leadership characteristics and they need them, find a way just to balance it or maybe go off record with people sometimes because it's a healing process also for our people because of what we went through in the past, lots of trauma. We're always fighting to get to the top, and it's like we shouldn't be fighting each other. So that's all I want to add, but it's not always easy, and there have been times when you just get worn out, of those types of battles. So thank you.
Thank you. Quindina, do you want to add anything?
For me, being the first ever elected woman to the highest seat in office, I could feel the challenges, I could just feel it in council sessions, not from everybody, but certain times, and navigating through that. Everyone's a team, everybody's contributing their talents and skills and their wisdom for the good of the entire tribe, and getting that across, like, look, I am here just like you to help further the good of our people, and I don't need to get into an argument or a debate about something trivial. We have an agenda in front of us, we need to move forward on it without coming off as I'm the one in charge, just that wasn't what I wanted to communicate. I was more of a, we have to listen to one another. We have to respond when things need to be corrected and moving forward. And women in leadership, they deserve a place at the table. Women, run the household. They even now, you know, they run the household, they have careers, they go and still do a lot of multitasking. And when you go to events, I see more women than men. For example, you know, church, if there's church events that I would get invited to, there was more women there, you know, wanting good for their family. So being in leadership, navigating through that, um, diplomacy is at the forefront, and also mutual respect, because you're also an example, not only for the leadership at hand, but for the entire public. You live in a fishbowl, whether you like it or not. And young girls, you know, seeing a female leader for the first time ever getting elected, my intention was not to be the first ever female, but it just turned out that way. But in my mind, I was always like, there are people watching. You have to respond, you know, diplomatically, but in a stern manner, because you have an objective that you have to work with everybody. And yes, there'll be disagreements. There'll be setbacks. Life has setbacks. We all have that, but it helps you in the moment of adversity to navigate through that, and it makes you a stronger person. Every one of you here on you know, on the screen today, at some point in your life faced adversity that you knew that you had to overcome, and when you look back on it, you're like, wow, I made it through that, and I'm a stronger person for it. So helping communicate that through various levels of people, from the youth to the young girls, the young boys, to the men and women, elderly. I will never forget when my first month in office, a little girl came up to me. She was like age 11, and she hugged me and she said, I am so happy that you are in leadership. And I said, oh, thank you very much. And she said, and you know why? And I said, why? And she said, because now my dad sees my mom as an equal. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do you respond to that? You know, and just encouraging that little girl to never give up on her dreams, her goals, and that she is a strong girl, and that in life she'll go through challenges. But if she will just think positive and keep working forward, there were many times like that where I met people that felt like, gosh, I don't have what it takes. But when the time comes, you have to bet on yourself and tell yourself that you can do it. And just navigating through those things, working with different people. There'll be people that will want to take you out because they want to see if you've got what it takes to take this position. You know, it's their ultimate goal, but it's your goal to be diplomatic, to work through it, to be stronger, and know that, hey, we're all in this together. It's not, you know, one person against one person. It's for a whole tribe. So learning to navigate through those, it'll make you a stronger person. I can guarantee you that. And there's something that Chairman Lupi told me. He said, Gwenina, you're going to be the first woman leader ever. And people will test you beyond what you would think they will test you. And they want to see you fail. But don't you ever, 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 you know, give them that satisfaction. It doesn't mean you have an eye for an eye attitude. You just got to think a little smarter. You just got to forgive them, and you got to keep chugging along, because there are much more important things for our people than to engage in little squabbles here and there. And, you know, just let it go, and just focus on what's ahead, what you're trying to accomplish. And he also told me, he told me, he said, it's in women to get emotional. That's just how you're made up. And he was talking to me in Apache. And he said, there's nothing wrong with that. But because you're a woman leader, I'm going to tell you something, and I hope it doesn't offend you. And I said, okay. And he said, don't you ever cry in public. Don't, if there's something very sad or anything, don't ever cry, because you know why? And I said, why? He said, somebody out there is going to use that and say, see, she's too weak to take this leadership position. She's too weak. She can't handle it. I'm telling you, Gwendina, you just stay the course, and you, yes, pray every day and ask for leadership from our creator, and build up yourself, but don't ever be doing that. And I was just like, wow. And the day that he passed was the day that, because he's like my dad. I was like, okay, I promised you that I wouldn't do this, but it was the hardest time ever to not show emotion in that way that he told me not to, because and he knew. I mean, a man 50 years in office, that's the PhD in leadership, and he's telling you how to navigate, or just giving you advice. But he also said, but don't ever forget to be a mom to the people, because you're going to be the mom. You're going to help heal people, or try to heal them from their trauma, or guide them in the right way. You're going to help the children. And I was thinking, how? But well, like I said, when the pandemic came, I literally had to take on the role of a mom, getting on the radio, get your vaccinations, stay home if you're sick, all those things. I'm just amazed that, wow, did he see that coming? But anyway, it's a learning process. But because you're made of strength and resilience, all of you can do it, because you have what it takes. Just don't forget that.
I want to ask a question about skill set. And so what skill set do you think is most important for success as an elected leader? And then it's sort of a two-part question. So what skill set is most important for success as a tribal leader? And then what skills did you improved over your time serving in a leadership position? And I'll direct this question to Darnella first.
I'm sorry, can you say it one more time?
Yeah, I was just curious about your skill set. What is the most important for success? What skill set do you think is most important for success as a tribal leader? And then what skill set improved during your time as in leadership?
Well, for me, one of the top ones is communication, learning to communicate in writing and verbally, how to speak to people, and how to be a leader. My skill sets that improved while serving was my depth of understanding, just relationships. That was something I really wasn't focusing on. I am in the leadership academy right now, and some of the things I know I learned, it's speaking to that. So when you're able to check yourself, and for me, one of the main ones, hold on one second, sorry about that. I was trying to reference something that I wanted to share, but just being able to listen better. So my listening skills, and you can be a great orator and you can speak well, and but you don't know what environment you're going to be in sometimes, where there are going to be people that are speaking different, or maybe they don't understand your tribe, or what you're saying, or what you're bringing to the table. So when you learn to listen, that helped me, and those are the skills that improve for me. But I do, I have an undergraduate degree, and I believe in continuing education. So sometimes if I saw weaknesses in myself, I would look for trainings to get involved in, to basically help my skill. Legal, I have a law degree, so I don't practice law, but I have an administrative justice degree, and those things help me understand the law, and just learning more about tribal law and how it affects us as leaders.
Thank you. Well, Vice Chairman Cloud, what about your skill set? What have you learned? What have you grown? And what do you think is most important for a leader?
I think let me start with that one first. I think what's most important for a leader is being able to listen, but also have thick skin, because your feelings will get hurt sometime, if not more than once during a day. And so understanding how you're going to react to those situations is really important for your self-awareness. And and I mean, I think that's always going to be a learning skill as you can continue to get older, because you just have no idea what people are dealing with and how they're going to come at you. But if you can even get them to even calm down, to de-escalate, I think that's a really good skill, because you make that connection, a personal connection with your constituents. And so, I think my greatest skill that I have improved is public speaking. And because I was kind of forced into public speaking, and it's been really good. It's been a really good skill to have.
I'm always impressed with public speaking skills. I think it's, yeah, something that you just need to practice, I guess. Gwendina, what about you?
The skill set, you know, you have to love the people you're serving. Like Lorelei said, you know, there'll be days where Facebook will be filled with just, you know, all types of anger about something, but you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to bounce back, and you have to keep moving forward and loving your people, serving with humility, you know, just getting at their level and collaborating, having a passion, finding common ground with your people, whether it be the youth to the elderly, you know, finding that common ground to gain that rapport, and bridging the gap. You know, sometimes, you know, elderly are very nervous about technology, but just, you know, showing them that it's okay, that it's a part of this moving forward, and that they are a part of it. So, you know, the more you communicate effectively and letting them know what's going on, the more you will build that trust and faith in the whole community. It may not be everybody all at once, but you're chipping away at something and you're planting a seed. Sometimes your ideas may just be like, I'm not for that. But if you just plant that seed, you just never know when it's going to flourish. And you just have to tell yourself that, you know, there's going to be a better day. We go at it again tomorrow. If there's something that didn't pass that you really had your heart on passing, hey, we'll do it again. You know, you have to develop that attitude of, may not be today, but it'll be in the future. And you just have that that type of enthusiasm about what you're trying to promote for your people. And what I've improved on over time for myself is probably how I react. Like I said, you know, earlier, the late chairman told me there will be people just wanting to take you out, and you cannot take that personally. You just have to keep moving along, because there's bigger things that you have to achieve, and you have to keep moving forward, and they're still your constituent. And you know, you just have to keep moving forward. And this is where prayer comes in. You communicate every day with your creator to help you to go through these things. And as long as you're doing the best to be the good person that you are for your people, the creator will bless you. He truly will. And sometimes, you know, our prayers are, wait, not right now, maybe later. You're like, okay, but you still keep moving ahead. And I think a skill set that I am most humbly proud of is my ability to communicate in my language and in English, serving as a public information officer for my people during the pandemic, explaining in as much detail as possible what's going on for the elderly out there, and then doing it again in English, and making sure that grandma out there understands me. And to me, as long as grandma or grandpa understands, then, you know, I'm doing a good job. So just getting that communication effort, refining it. And we're always learning new things. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean you know everything. You're going to learn right along everybody else. And that's something that my dad told me. He said, don't ever forget, Glendina, just because you have your degree doesn't mean you know everything. You're just barely starting out. You're going to have to learn every day. All of us learn something new. You take that in humility and you apply it to your life. But don't ever act like you know more than somebody, because somebody will come along that knows more than you. And as long as you are humble in that way and just maintain that good rapport and just, you know, trying to be better every day. I have my shortcomings. Who doesn't? You just build on those and make it better. And we're all in this world to make things better, and we can do better for ourselves as well. And we're all in a growing process. So for that, I'm very humbled at the opportunity that I was able to lead our people through a pandemic, and just I'm still helping however way I can. And you know, it's all about a learning process, but everybody can do it.
Oh, well, that is such good advice and closing advice. There was so much packed into what we talked about. I wanted to ask questions about language and questions about supporting leadership and motivating youth. But we are out of time. But I'd like to thank our co-chairs for making this panel so insightful and valuable. And I want to thank Mira Barney for coordinating and managing all the tech behind the scenes and the reminders and everything. And then, of course, I want to thank our audience for joining us today. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a good rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.